In this video, I just want to quickly point out that you have a lot of choices to use as your warp when you're weaving. Now, I've been showing you fisherman wool, which is really a knitting yarn. It does work well when you have a rigid heddle. It would not work well with string heddles, and I'm having trouble with it on the backstrap loom with the, even though that has a rigid heddle, simply because of the tension. So if you're going to use fisherman wool yarn, it's better to have something where, if it is a backstrap loom, you can make sure that whatever you have the loom hooked to allows you to pull back hard enough on the loom so that you can have a high tension. But moving the heddle back and forth is going to fray all wools just a little bit. So here are some options. This is Navajo Churro rug warp, and it's the most expensive. It's also the best warp I've ever seen. I will put the link. I think it's either R.B. Burnham or R.C. Burnham Company, and they deal in Navajo rugs, and it's the best warp I've ever used. It's $13 for 6 ounces on a cone, plus shipping. These are, and I don't have the prices right here, these are various Harrisville design yarns, which work well, but when you're threading a heddle, if the hook or the orifice hook that you're using, or the heddle hook you're using, if you happen to split the strands, the Harrisville warp will split fairly easily, and then you have to start a new warp thread instead of dealing with a knot in your warp. Then one of the best is cotton crochet thread, size 10 cotton crochet thread, that depending on the heddle you can use either single strand or double strand. And then another option is acrylic crochet thread, size 10 again. Very strong, very thin to go through any heddle. One of my first bedrolls, the mat was woven with actually bakery string, which is another option, but it's very similar. The bakery string that I bought was very similar to crochet thread. So you want that finished surface. And that's what I have a slight problem with the Harrisville. I've bought a cone of their warp before, and it does stay together, but it's spun wool. And like I said, it can split. The fisherman can split. The Navajo rug warp is actually made by brown sheep. There's also some hand-spun warp that they sell, that they have spun themselves. Navajo people that spin their own warp are magicians, because I spin. I know how hard it is to get it like this all the time, consistently, in a long enough length to actually be warp. I can do small amounts of this, but then I would end up with knots and everything. So make sure that if you're thinking of weaving, if you're going to do it for art and pages, then I would get a small rigid heddle loom or a backstrap loom and use fisherman wool. It's good enough for that. It shrinks, it felts. If you're going to do weaving for other reasons, these are some of the warps. I also use cotton string, and this is where my sewing is really going to come in. Cotton string warp with wool weft makes a fabric that doesn't felt or shrink very well. You've also got both cotton and wool in a flat, even weave. And that is where I've had in the past sometimes some difficulty, and when I use that as a sewing fabric, not all my warp threads get picked up. So, and that is actually on my big backstrap loom right now. So when I finish that piece, I'll be able to show you the different problems you can run into when you're using a hand-woven fabric as a sewing fabric as opposed to buying a commercial fabric. But here are some warp choices.